Hello and welcome to Soft Talks Photography. Today we're going to be speaking to Chris from Arkansas. He's going to be talking to us about his camera and why he picked this camera. You could probably already tell what camera it is from the thumbnail and the title, but let's go over to Chris from Arkansas in America and have a quick chat. Hi Chris, how are you?
Hey Zolf, I'm doing good today. How about yourself?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for coming on today and speaking to us about your camera.
Dude, thanks for having me on here. I'm really excited to get to tell everybody why I like this and get to talk to you about this.
Yeah, wicked. So if you give us a brief intro about the camera itself that you use, which
All
camera
right,
is it?
I use the Lumix GH5. This is what there's a bit of discussion in the Micro Four Thirds community, but it's a Micro Four Thirds mirrorless camera, and it is honestly probably the best of the Lumix line. So at words, not my friend today.
Right?
To put a long story short with it, it has what do you call in-body stabilization, does 4K and cinema 4K and regular 4K, does 10-bit and can do up to 180 frames per second slow-mo. Um,
Wow.
so as opposed to some cameras like Sony's, which are full frame and although they have great full frame, they have great 4K and great like depth of field and everything. They might be lacking in certain things such as like bit depth or stuff like this or slow mo. And that's where this camera I think really shines and really picks up the slack. And I view this camera as a very good workhorse camera. It can do great for short films and everything, but it does amazing for your working filmmaker, somebody who does weddings or
Yeah.
does commercials and such like that.
Ah, really good. That sounds awesome. It's quite a good spec on that camera too. What led you to get that camera? What did you have before that one?
All right, I started, I guess just going back to the beginning of my filmmaking stuff, I started using like this cheap, like $50 handheld like a little camcorder. Then I moved from there to a Canon Vixia HFR50, and then to a T5i, if I remember right. And that's what really got me into the whole like photography and DSLRs and everything. And from there, I wanted something a little with higher specs and everything because clients have been asking for 4K. They've been wanting some more slow mo and stuff like that. So I'm like, what can I do? What can I look for? And then it lead me to the Lumix G7, which is kind of like the baby brother to this sort of thing.
Hmm.
Like it is like the consumer model of I think of the GH4, if I remember right, the one before this. And then use that for a good year, maybe 2 years, and that's
Yeah.
what led me to this one because the G7 was great, did everything I needed. It had 4K, had 60 FPS, 1080, so it worked great for most of the clients that were wanting it. But I just felt a little more limited in terms of like bit depth for the what do you call it, 10-bit color and stuff like that, because I like grading my own footage, and then also having the what do you call it, 120 to 180 FPS lets me do nice speed
Yeah.
ramps, which I everybody loves them. I love them so much.
Oh wow. Well, hopefully we'll get some examples from you and we can link to that in another episode when we film and show some
Absolutely.
samples because that sounds really good. So myself, I've been sticking to Canon most of my life really. I had a T2i which I started to, which is an America T2i. Ours is a 550D, and I've got a 5D Mark II. What led you to get Micro Four Thirds? Was there anything in particular you stood out?
For me specifically, it was just the whole lens adaptability. Like with Canon, what do you call it? I actually have a couple of my Canon lenses right here. Like this is the what do you call it, Canon 55 to 255 or 250 EFS lens, and it was great for pretty much anything I needed telephoto. A lot like with the 50 millimeter, the kit lens, the 35 millimeter lenses from Canon, they're all amazing camera lenses. But then I started seeing like all the Nikon lenses or all the vintage lenses that I wanted to use, like the Helios M44 or the Helios 44-2. That one just drove me crazy because I wanted to use it, but adapters get a little crazy once you're having to deal with glass and everything. Um, and also I inherited what do you call it? I also bought some Canon FD lenses from what do you call it, local seller.
Mhm.
So all these great lenses that I had that I wanted to play around with just for different aesthetics, different looks, and everything. I couldn't use them to their full capability with the Canon because I mean, what do you call it? They were built for film cameras, which had like this much room between them, whereas the DSLRs had like this much room in between the with the mirror and everything.
Mhm.
So for me, it was just kind of like a natural progression going back to something closer to film, so I could use those film lenses and have more. I guess you can call it versatility in my lens kit, essentially. That was my biggest draw for moving over was the adaptability of lenses and be able to just use so many of them on there.
Okay, that's interesting. Did you have much of a discussion or talk about why it was Lumix that you went with? Did you have like any options or comparisons that you looked at before you got that camera? So I'm thinking if someone's looking at this now and they're thinking about getting that camera, what other cameras are capable that are similar spec that you maybe looked at and didn't end up getting?
At the time, whenever I was looking at the G7 and the GH5, Fuji had put some stuff out, but they were a lot more expensive than everybody else. But then Lumix, well, comparably, I should say, but then Lumix and Sony were kind of going head to head at putting out their mirrorless lines. Sony going for more of the crop sensor and full frame, Lumix going for strictly micro four thirds essentially. And for me, it was between the Sony A7, I think it was the A7S1 and the GH5. And I kept going back and forth on which one would work best for me. And the reason the GH5 went out, or the GH5 went out for me, was strictly because of the versatility for client shoots. It doesn't have as much. It's not as strong in low light as the A7S because let's be honest here, nothing can beat Sony in low light. They are the kings of low light for a reason. Um, but for everything I was doing, for all my client videos, I had a lot more lighting control. I had the ability to, you know what? Let's throw just 3 more lights at it. Let's just throw more light. And that was the biggest upside for me. So having low light wasn't a big seller for me. Um, so with that, the GH5 has its low light isn't horrible, but it's not great either. Um, so it's just kind of like a natural progression. Like, okay, I don't need the main selling feature from the Sony's, but the what do you call it, 10 bits, what's really pulling me over here. So I guess in a long roundabout way to say it, the 10-bit won me over, and the Sony's low light wasn't something that was absolutely necessary for me. And then Fuji was just priced out for me.
Oh wow, yeah, Fuji's tend to be more expensive as well, so
Yeah,
it's a different
they
whole
are
game, isn't it?
beautiful. They
Yes.
are absolutely amazing
Mm,
cameras. They're too rich for my blood.
yeah. And how are you finding this camera at the moment? Do you think it's okay for your needs? Have you got any more plans to upgrade or get another camera or an additional camera? What would you get next?
As of right now, I think I'm pretty well set with my GH5. I don't have any plans to upgrade unless Lumix announces their GH6 and they add some considerable changes to it. Everything that this thing does, it does honestly everything I needed to. It does the 120 or 180 FPS slow motion whenever I need it. Does the 10-bit, which I keep harping on the 10-bit, but that's like my favorite feature of the entire thing because I actually get to go in and color grade a lot deeper now and get to what do you call it? Get to tweak the colors just how I like it instead of being limited by 10-bit and worrying about breaking the footage. I don't have to worry about that now.
Yeah.
And a feature that I didn't think I was going to be using a whole lot, it has dual SD card slots.
Yes.
I didn't think I was going to need that until like a week or two after I bought this thing. I actually got hired to do a dance recital, and it was like a 3.5 hour long dance recital.
Hmm.
So recording 3.5 hours in 4K, not even doing 10-bit, just doing 4K, it took two 180 or 128 gig cards
Wow.
to like fill completely to record that. So without having what do you call it, having the dual SD card slots means I didn't have to stop and
Yes.
swap SD cards. So
So do you use it more for giving you duration as opposed to having them in sync so they're backing each other up? So for example, one card fails, you've got the same copy in the second card. Is that how it works?
yeah, I use it because there's both those options there. You can either do it as a what do you call it, records to both cards simultaneously,
Mhm.
or it can record just like one after another. So after card one's full, it just backups to card two. I do it that way because most of the things I do are like my normal workload is just YouTube for the most part,
Mhm.
and the occasional client video.
Mhm.
I'll have multiple SD cards on me, and I swap those out pretty religiously.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure it's going to bite me in the butt one day to not have it backing up back all at the same time. But as of right now, it hasn't. So I'm kind of riding that out and just using the duration there.
Mhm.
Um, but it really does help that most of the things I do, I can get multiple takes anyway. Um, I've done some weddings, but they're not, my priority. They're not my focus. So I don't have to worry about, oh, I missed the kiss. Nope. I don't have to
Mhm.
worry about that. I can just keep redoing these takes over and
Yeah.
over again until I get them right.
Oh, that's really good. And just finally touching on the lens you've got attached on it at the moment. What lens are you using at the moment?
At the moment and during all moments, it's the Sigma 18 to 35.
Okay.
That is everybody that uses the GH5's favorite lens. Like I have not been able to go to a GH5 thread and not find somebody recommending the Sigma 18 to 35. And it is super cliche for lenses at the moment, but that is the literal best wide angle lens I can get for this camera without having to go native.
All
Uh,
right.
because
Excellent.
with
What
it,
I will do is I think we'll keep that for another video because that lens deserves its own video. But it's been really
it
good
is
talking to you today
amazing.
about your camera. So thanks for explaining what you use and how you use it. And what we'll do is we'll put some more time in and speak to you more about your lens. And I think you're very knowledgeable on your topic. So it'd be interesting to get you to explain more about the 10-bit as well, just to get like a deep dive into it and how it improves the workflow and the detail you can get from shots, etc.
I think
So
I just gotta say thank you for having me on here. This has been amazing getting to talk to you. I don't really get to talk to a whole lot of camera people all the
mm,
time because all my local camera friends went on to college and they're working full time now.
well,
So yeah, we don't get to hang out and have camera chats all that often.
yeah, wicked.
So yeah, just thank you for having me on here. I was great getting to talk to you about this, and yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for
that's really
inviting me
good.
on.
I think we'll get more information from you soon as well. I'll have a few episodes set up because it's really interesting, like you say, to speak to camera folk and get the ideas and like the thought behind why this works and why this doesn't work, for example. So thanks for joining me today. And this is one of our Zolf Talks photography episodes. If you've seen in the cards above, you'll see a link to Chris's channel. So make sure to pop over and check him out and subscribe. He's making some great content. And in the cards, you'll see a link to the Creative Collaborations playlist where you can see more videos of this nature. Thank you and see you on the next one.